Today is January 14th, and today we're talking about the rewards that we get in life. So, in Christianity, we're taught to be good in order to get a reward, either in this lifetime, but mostly after this life is done in heaven. But maybe being kind and good can be the reward in and of itself. Hi, I'm Candy. I'm a hypnotherapist who's deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, and I know how mindset shapes our behavior. So, in this series, I'm going to share my daily reflections from 3 different devotionals. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that one's a little more spiritual, non-religious. Also, Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a very modern Christian approach. And My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers, which is a very classic Christian angle. My goal is to help you see how each one of these devotionals or these day books might shape your mindset a little differently. And if you're into that kind of reflection, please like and follow for more. Let's get started. So for January 14th in the Book of Awakening, Mark Nepo talks about how our expectations don't always get met in the way we would maybe like at first or expect for sure. So just because we serve another person or we're honest about a situation or we're kind to someone does not guarantee that the karma back or the reward back is going to be we're approved of, or if we're honest, we get justice, or that we're recognized even as being a kind person. Actually, as you become more and more self-aware, what you're going to discover is that the effort and the reward kind of become inseparable. So serving others, you're not doing it for them or to get something from them. You just enjoy the electricity of helping others, how that feels in your own body. When you're honest, the reward for that is you don't have to spend any energy trying to cover up a lie, another lie, and another lie. Or you don't have to spend the energy trying to figure out what you said the first time so that you don't contradict yourself in the second one. So it saves you a lot of energy to use towards things you enjoy. It's a lot easier life mentally. And then, being kind, you get to know that you're a kind person. You're not swayed by people saying things. If someone were to say, try to manipulate, you're not easily manipulated like by someone trying to get you to do something because they're trying to use their approval. You're not aiming for their approval. You know what is right for you and what's not. And when you're authentic to yourself, when you are authentic, this reduces your own suffering by allowing you to be one honest person, one individual that you're not contradicting yourself. You're not being one person over here and a different person over here. Now, I'm not saying that we don't sometimes have to keep parts of ourselves kind of hidden in certain situations. That might be the case for safety reasons, but not contradictory. So in Christianity, it kind of taught you there was a lot of contradiction in it because you knew you stood out with people who were not Christians. And sometimes you stood out as very strange. But if you kept your mouth shut, they wouldn't know. And sometimes that felt better, obviously. But you always had this underlying urge, and it's not from God. It's not the Holy Spirit convicting you. It is a program that was put in you to preach. You need to be preaching the gospel at all times. And so you felt this conviction and you would rub against what you thought was actually proper in the situation. And so if you could just be authentic, you would do what you actually felt was right without the shame on top of it. You could just be yourself and know that that was the kind and loving thing to do in the situation, and that you wouldn't have to live these two lives. I'm trying to think of a time because I know that I was wearing masks. Like I would go to church and you didn't want them to know all your life because you could see them talk about one another. They would use prayer as a way of kind of slandering one another. I know that gossip is just like a human condition. That's something we do. We all talk about things and people. I don't feel That doesn't bother me. I know people gossip about me, and that doesn't bother me. Slander is a whole different thing. When you try to take someone's character and spread it around that's not true, that spread around lies and stuff and try to ruin them, that's a completely different thing. Now that I'm definitely not for. But to talk about people and talk about situations, that's human nature. And that is actually how you learn how to have a different perspective, quite honestly. Other people might catch you and say, hey, but it could, can you look at it from this angle? So it can be really healthy. And I've used it in that way. But when you go to church and they're using prayer that way, you learn to keep quiet about your own life. And so you might wear this facade that everything's all together. You got everything down. You got, it looks really good. And social media has a knack for doing this. And Facebook was the first, or the first that I remember, that would do that so well. And it became just toxic and gross. And I could feel my body resisting the posts on social media that people would put up where it just looks perfect. You compare your best day with their best day with your worst. And it creates this inauthenticity. So then you don't want to run into those people because you don't want them to see you actually maybe not looking all put together. So basically what he's saying here is that being authentic is its own reward. Being kind is its own reward. All of these things can be their own reward rather than looking for a future reward or some sort of benefit in the now. In the now, right now moment, you can have a reward, and that is just feeling whole. Living truthfully like that brings peace, not because others approve, because it doesn't matter, but because you're not betraying yourself. There's no betrayal of self, so you feel very whole and connected to yourself, and that connected to your source. And so that's the reward, not seeking something in heaven, but just feeling good. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror is in and of itself a beautiful reward. And Jesus calling your emptiness, or how I would read this as a Christian would be my lowliness, is kind of framed as an ideal condition for receiving Jesus's peace, because now I've kind of like emptied myself of all my pride, I guess, maybe, or thinking I can do it myself, to completely dependence on Jesus. So it's the prime condition to receive Jesus's peace and being filled with it. And I do believe that the author was trying to comfort with this. And I think there can be comfort in um, the next part where it talks about just reminding you that God fully knows you and loves you, and that is um, supposed to bring a lot of comfort, that it's you're not having to try to pretend, trying to put on a facade for God. You can't, because he knows you. Though I have seen this be abused in Christianity, that God is always watching, that he fully knows everything you're doing, can be used as a threat too. So that will keep you in check, keep you controlled. So that, like every scripture verse, can be used. It's a double-edged sword. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. And it's not just the Bible that's used that way. The internet is used for good and for evil. Television is used for good and for evil. Books can be used for good and for evil. Everything. Cars can be used for good and for evil. I mean, food can be used for good and for evil. Like, there's so many things. Um, I that you got to learn how to use the tools that are in your life for the benefit of you and those around you, and not just those you love, but the entire world. Like, what's good for the majority of us? What is, and for those who aren't in the majority, what's good for them? Like, can we come to some sort of compromise that's good for all of us? These are things, discussions we should be having, rather than just having these laws that say this is always good and this is always evil. Because there's very few things that would fall in that category. But Christianity doesn't leave a lot of room for nuance at all. So the other thing that's talked about is that your weakness, or your lowness, can be a place of transformation with God, rather than shame, which people would tend to fall into, is shame in Christianity for sure. Like shame of maybe the judgment of others, feeling that you haven't been following God close enough, or if you're suffering, what have you done that's caused your suffering, that God's punishing you or whatever. So I can see this message offering comfort by trying to remove the shame, but it just has this potential to be used as a control mechanism depending on how being known is framed. Is it God knows you, and so you don't have to, you know, pretend with him. He knows you and he loves you just as you are. Or is it God loves you, or God is watching always, he knows you, so don't even try to do anything, that he's always watching, like he's ready to pounce. There's going to be a punishment because you're not hiding anything from God. So I think in Christianity it was used both ways. I'm not going to lie. It was used both ways. So that's what the summary is of the Jesus calling. And it's basically you're rewarded for your emptiness. That's where the peace would come in. Is the lower you get, the more uh primed you are, I guess. I don't know if that would be the right word for um Jesus's peace. And in my utmost for his highest, the focus is just kind of on like the universal call of God. So God calls to everyone, to serve, to, serve him basically, but only those with the right spiritual condition, those who have come to God through Jesus Christ, will be able to even hear that call. And then that hearing of that call becomes evidence. Oh, I guess I must be chosen because I'm following Jesus. Not in reality. What the reality is, oh, I was born in America, so I'm probably going to be raised Christian. I'm born in the South in America, and I'm probably going to be raised Baptist or Southern Baptist. Or I'm born in Utah, so I'm probably going to be raised Mormon. Or I'm, born in the Northeast, so I'm probably going to be raised Episcopalian or whatever. So all of these, you know, these the conditions, the spiritual condition that you find yourself in, if it's Christianity, is proof that you were chosen. Okay. So that you heard the call, when that's not at all the case. Even though I think Oswald Chambers would say there's different types, like there are some that say they're Christians and they're not. There's different levels, I think, to Christianity for sure. Like some people call themselves a Christian, they're not as zealous. Even in the circles that I was in evangelical Christianity, we thought some Christians were kind of lazier than we were because we were more zealous. I went out in my school, like the principal of my school was also a pastor, and he would preach on the campus to the university kids, and he was ruthless. That was so embarrassing. He would force us to hand out pamphlets, but it was considered so godly, and I had to fight my own feelings of shame. And he would call the girls walking by whores in order to get their attention, in order to say, "You're going to hell." It was so disgusting, and I hated every minute of it. But instead of saying this is wrong, inside I was like, I'm wrong for thinking this is wrong, because there's a hell that these people are going to go to, and he's doing whatever he has to. So, if you hear the call, that means that you've been chosen. So you're already superior in some way to others. And then your faithfulness to that call is measured by your availability to serve, like going down on campus. Did you choose to go to work, or did you go down to campus? Did you choose to spend time with your family doing something enjoyable today, or did you go to church? Did you sleep in? Did you go to church? Every time the church doors were open, we were supposed to be there. That was a saying to us. So the calling of God, wait, first I want to back up. Your faithfulness is measured by your availability. It's not by your authenticity and what you truly believe in your heart and how you live. It's how much are you able to serve? How much do you serve? We're watching you. So it's based all on the judgment of others. And so basically your service becomes something, or your calling or your belief system. You're trying to prove it rather than just discover kind of this spiritual life, you are trying to prove that you're in the right group. And it also creates it creates a conformity to which group you're in, depending on the group you're in, but it also creates this hierarchy. Some are higher than others. And the reward is in being approved. Do your leaders approve of you? Do they think that you're godly? Do your parents think that you're godly? That approval is what you're looking for. You're chasing that approval of others instead of the reward of just being good, because just good for the sake of being good because it feels good to you. Being kind because it feels good to be kind. That feels right. Makes you feel whole. Being honest, being someone who cares about others, feeling grounded and centered inside instead of being able to look at yourself in the mirror and like yourself. I remember when we got to our most judgmental point, the most judgmental church we were at, most legalistic. It was a fundamentalist Christian church, very small. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day and saying, "Who are you? I don't even know who you are." And gosh, deconstruction changed that. Now I look in the mirror and I like who I am, regardless of what other people say. I like who I am. So that's the difference. One framework, the Book of Awakening, teaches that meaning comes from being yourself. Jesus Calling teaches that peace comes from being fully known by somebody outside of yourself. And the third suggests that your worth, your reward, comes from being available to God. Remember, you get to decide what you devote your thinking to today. You might not be able to control every thought that comes in, but you can definitely decide what you entertain. And whether it comes from something I've said today or something completely different, choose wisely and set an intention that truly benefits you and those around you. And if you found any value here today, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And let's keep our minds on what helps us love ourselves and each other a little bit better every day.